Welcome to Meet the Biz. Today, I am visiting with, how long have I known this incredible, amazing man? I think I met him when he was this small. I don't know. Oh, he is wonderful. He's wonderful. He is a professional software engineer specializing in web design and development. And when I met him, he was an actor and a singer, and I still think he is. My dear friend, Mr. Sam Thacker!
Hello, yes, hi. Thank you so much for having me, David.
Well, this is fun. This is fun. It's sort of like, okay, let's bring the family in.
No, yeah, and you were close. Yeah, I was definitely smaller, but it was about 10 years ago we met.
Was it only 10 years ago?
It's been 10 years. I love how for me, I was thinking about it last night, and I was like, how long have I known David? Yeah, about 10 years. Wow, that's a long time.
Wow. Well, especially since you're only...
I'm 23, so there you go.
Okay. Really? Okay. Was it?
Yeah, no. It was let's see. It was at a Christmas Carol audition for the Edgemar Theater in Santa Monica.
Right.
And I remember this because I was auditioning for Boy Scrooge, and I got 3 callbacks for that role. And I was really excited, and I loved working with you, and I love auditioning. I've always loved auditioning. A lot of people tend to not like auditioning, and they just want to go ahead and be on the stage. I love auditioning. It's so much fun for me to try on as many hats as I can, and auditions are a way to do that. Unfortunately, I didn't get the Christmas Carol role. I guess I know you must have really liked me because I got those 3 callbacks, but my sister did get the role of Little Fan. So I ended up spending a lot of time with you and the people that you work with anyways, because I was always with her, with my mom, going ahead, and she was in rehearsal or you guys were doing the show. So yeah, it's been 10 years.
10 years. Wow. And that was Corey Allen's last production, I believe.
Yes. And I remember I was so excited to get to meet him because I grew up on Star Trek: The Next Generation. Yeah. So being able to finally meet him, and he wrote Encounter at Farpoint, all these amazing episodes, just amazing.
Yeah, he was an amazing man. He's an amazing man. And you are an amazing man. And then we went on to you did Lainey Kazan's workshop.
Yes, yeah, and Lainey's workshop was I still think about it a lot, and I have to say it's one of the most magical acting training experiences that I have, that I've had, that I remember, and I say that having worked with some amazing, wonderful, world-class coaches, and the reason for that is I was working on a song I was prepping a song for a performance, and the workshop itself wasn't necessarily dealing with singing, but I had brought it anyways, and she wanted to hear it. So I went ahead and I performed Willkommen in Cabaret in front of the entire workshop, and just the pointers that she gave and the way that she worked with me on it. I remember it to this day, and I've used that song several times over the course of my tenure doing acting and performing, and I always think back to the notes that she gave me. So no matter what you are doing, anything magic is always tied to the name David Zimmerman,
I would say. That's right. And that's you are magic, because you do beside the acting and the singing, you do my website and you do my websites.
Yes, all I think we're at 5 now, all 5 of them,
Five.
I believe. Yeah, Meet the Biz, My Next Breath, Your Personal Site, Honey Bunny, and are we at 4? I think we're at 4, but still, that's a lot.
You're psychic. I think there's a 5th one coming up somewhere.
There we go.
There we go.
Maybe I shouldn't be mentioned that on the air, surprise project or something.
Oh. Well, we'll need to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
So what got you interested? Of course, you were in the acting field. You were singing.
Mm-hmm.
You were doing all this stuff. What got you interested in web design, development, and engineering?
So really funny thing is I and my memory's a little hazy because I've been doing this for a very long time, but I got into both of them at a very young age. The acting because I saw a friend in a musical theater production, and I turned to my mom in the audience and said, "I want to do that. That looks fun." And I was like 7 or something like that. I was really young. But at the same time is when I was getting into computers, and I started teaching myself how to program from a really young age. I would just go on my computer and mess around, try to figure out how the computer worked. How could I get it to do things specific to what I wanted to do to program it, essentially. And that eventually evolved into websites because this was like mid 2000s, I want to say, and at the early mid 2000s, and at the time there was a really big web boom. A lot of people were going ahead and making websites. The web was kind of like, okay, web 1.0, web 2.0, the new frontier for everything interconnected on the computer. And I really wanted to learn how to go ahead and how do they make the website? How does it work? What's the networking behind it? And so I started just honestly, I just started researching stuff on the internet. Yeah. And I expanded my knowledge base, and from there, and I feel really fortunate to have grown up in a time where there's such a big boom on the internet, because like, as with all technology, if you look at things from like 10 years ago, the amount of advancements and changes and perfections that have been done from even just like 2 years ago are astronomical. Right. So kind of jumping in on that wave just at the right time and finding something that I absolutely love doing and was pretty good at, I would go ahead and say.
Take the well, excellent at.
Thank you. But yeah, so it just kind of just grew from there, and I found something that I love doing, and I stuck with it. And I'm here like a decade later doing client websites and hosting websites and applications that are ranging from individuals and small businesses to people who have really specific needs and have a very specific look and application that they need to get done, but they don't necessarily know how to do all of the coding to make the magic happen. They want their own corner of the internet, I like to say.
Right.
But yeah, it's quite a journey thus far.
Well, you know what's so interesting too is, you know, you still love performing. That I can hear it from you when I talk to you, when we meet, you know, when we used to meet outside of the quarantine.
Yeah, of course.
But you have, it seems like, you know, some people have a stronger right brain and a left brain, the creative and the intellectual, and, you know, not to say creative isn't intellectual, but you seem to have a nice balance of both.
Yes.
Yeah, and by having that, I think it just helps. It helps for the people who are in the arts. You have that extra special, you know, you see something that other web designers might not.
Yeah. And again, I think this is just part of a byproduct of being really fortunate to be able to get into both of these at the same time. It is very, very different fields. I mean, sure, web design and development and putting everything together, like you can throw code at a website and you can make it work, but the difference is the creativity in that, to go ahead and say, okay, what's the best way to capture X? What my goal is here? What's my best way to do that and make it as seamless as possible? And the experience of the website, the actual look of the website, how it interacts and flows, there's so much more that goes into it than just code.
Yeah.
And I think part of my experience with the industry and acting and having that creative outlet for me has been essential in not only helping me build my repertoire and build my experience, but also just in general. Like I'm a computer science major, and I was majoring in computer science when I was doing like regional tours of theater, musical theater in Alaska. Like I'd literally be in the green room reading a computer architecture book because I had homework due. And
Wow.
I was in college for computer science, and people come to me like, "What are you reading?" I'm like, computer architecture 8th edition." but really having the left brain and the right brain to go ahead, and it just feels to flow so naturally to me. And it also comes back to just the amount of stuff that I have my hands in what I'm doing. Like I'm a computer science major. I run my own web design studio for a decade, and I'm minoring in philosophy because that's something that's a class I took in high school that I loved, and figured out, hey, I'm good at this too. I can go ahead and read up on all this stuff. So just, yeah, just a little bit of everything.
Well, and you know what? It shows that, we really need it, especially in this country. They tried to take away the arts and music, dancing, art, but it's necessary. I really think
Yes.
it is so necessary to go hand in hand with everything.
Yeah, and I think for me, at least, the perspective that I have on this, as someone who's in like a STEM major or a hard science, like a lot of math and everything, is there can be soul to the computer. There can be soul to a certain extent to what you do on it, how you interact with it, how you design it. But at the end of the day, if you don't take into account the human factor, if you don't take into account the experience of the person using the computer and look at that human computer interaction,
Yeah.
what is the point? What are you doing it for? You can code a machine and build a machine and have it do all these wonderful things, but if you don't take into account at the end of the day who is using it, and
Mm-hmm.
that's us humans, at least right now, until maybe in like 10-15 years monkeys know how to use a mouse and can go to google.com or something like that, then that if you're not taking the human factor into account, what's the point?
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of engineers and software developers who are so ingrained in just the code and the computer and thinking like a compiler when you're compiling code, they kind of lose sight of that, the humanity of it. And
Yeah.
I think having the experience in the arts to go ahead and not only have that human interaction, but human connection with someone on stage that you've never met, who's a completely different character or person than they were 5 seconds ago when you were waiting with them in the wings. You can't replicate that. There's no algorithm, at least not yet, for human emotion and interconnectivity.
Thank
And
God.
that's still just so important.
Oh, we've got to, even when they're talking about getting rid of actors and having just computer generated actors, and I'm going, no, the humanity, the
Yeah.
subtle, you can't replicate that. It's just no.
Yeah, there's technology is great, but we need to understand that. I mean, if anything, hey, I'm able to do this interview with you right now despite the whole pandemic and everything going on because of technology.
Yeah.
I mean, I love technology and I love understanding how it works, but we need to know the difference between the use of the tool and trying to force the tool to do something that it wasn't designed to do.
Right.
Is what I would say.
Yeah. So who would you, I mean, who would you say needs a website, especially nowadays? This would be a question from that that a few people have asked me. Why do I need a website when I have Facebook or Instagram or Twitter?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I would say anyone who is trying to market themselves, whether it's an individual, a small business, a multinational corporation, everyone needs a website. And here's why. Sure, you have all these platforms like Facebook and Twitter and all this social media that's fantastic for going ahead and getting the word out, putting yourself out there. I used it extensively for when I was acting. I go ahead and make a Facebook post and say, oh hey, here's something I'm working on right now, with just like some photos or a video if it was allowed to be filmed, stuff like that, just to keep people in the loop as to what I'm doing. But having your own corner of the internet that you can fully control is very different from using a platform that someone else has designed and is tweaking the way that it works, for example. And this just goes to show recently with what Twitter's been doing. Twitter's been doing a lot of changes in terms of how they're managing their platform, and they're putting more emphasis on quoted retweets as opposed to just regular retweets, because they want to encourage conversation. And some would argue that that's great, and some would argue that that choice is not great. But at the end of the day, if you were using Twitter to try and market yourself, you don't have a say over that platform. You have to follow Twitter's rules. You have to follow all the guidelines they put in place. So especially for actors and performers who are literally marketing themselves as the person, as they're selling their experience, they're selling their ability to act and perform, having a website is very important to not only market yourself, but have a place that you can control. Because sure, not even social media, you have all these sites like IMDb, I mean, Actors Access, a little less so, that's mainly for actual auditions, but like IMDb, like you can put your reel up, you can put your photos up, but you can't control the way IMDb looks. You can't control what it does.
Yeah.
You need something, you need a website that's indicative of what you're marketing, which is you. You need something that represents creatively and expressively, individually, who you are and what you bring to the table. And the way that I like to think of this is a phrase that, or a term that everyone is familiar with at some point in their lives. And it's that first impressions matter. And sure, you could go ahead and say that about anything, but what I'm trying to get at is, whether you're walking into a job interview or an audition room, pretty much same thing, or you're meeting someone for the first time, you're going on a first date, what have you. The first 10 seconds, the first impression that person makes matters the most. And the same, how you carry yourself, how you present yourself, and the same thing applies to websites. It's actually even more so with websites. Like if you walk into an audition room and you walk in and you sing your 16 bars for a musical theater audition, the casting director already knows whether or not they want you to continue, or they want to hear more, see more, they just want to bring the next person in, get you out, get people moving. But they still have that courtesy, okay, let's listen to your 1632 bars, and then we already know our decision while you're singing. With websites, they can just close it. They don't need to have a courtesy, I see your website's okay. I'm going to spend an extra 5 seconds on it, but then I'm going to close it because it's not really giving me what I needed. I don't know who you are as a person. It's not telling me much. No, they could just close it. Yeah. There's no courtesy wait time. So having that piece of individuality in it that captures who you are and captures people and captures their attention, that's what's most important. Yeah. Because if your website's not working for you and it's just okay, what's the point of having the website, I would say.
Yeah. Now, somebody, let's say we start from the beginning. Somebody says, you know what, I like what he's saying. And let's say they call you up. What's your process when you meet a new client? What's the step-by-step?
So a lot of people in my field, especially people with technical backgrounds, would go ahead and say, okay, how many pages do you want? What's the content we need on the site? All these technical questions. Do you have a web host, whatever, stuff like that. I want to know you as a person. I want to know what drives you, what captures you, what do you want to represent on the website? Because at the end of the day, as I was saying, the website is you. You're marketing yourself or your brand or what have you.
Yeah.
And in order to capture that, you need to know the person. You need to know who you're dealing with. I want to, like, if you're an actor, whether you have reels that you're going to put on, or you're just starting out, I want to know what what you would like to do. What's a role that you would see yourself in, that you would want to do? Excuse me. And knowing that and knowing the person allows me to tailor the design and the feel and the flow of the site to that person. And sure, there are a lot of websites and tools out there that I won't name any because they're my competition, but that allow you to go ahead, drag and drop, make your own site, 10 minutes, $10 a month, put some text and images in, change some colors, and you're done.
Yeah.
And that's great for basic websites. That's fine. If the minimum bar is having a website, you now have a website. But having been in the industry and knowing that a lot of people use those tools to just get themselves on the internet, which is a start, they all tend to look the same after a while. Because there's only so many tools that you can use without doing like coding and customization work, and there's only so many sites you can do and using like templates and stuff before you kind of see, oh yeah, I've seen this one before. They changed the colors a little bit and stuff. And sure, maybe to the average Joe that's fine, it's a website. But it's not personalized to fit you, I would say, and that's where I come in.
Right, right. Now, here's a question that just popped into my head. Why do I need, I guess, 4 websites right now I have? Why do I need 4?
Yeah. I need 4 of them. Well, at least in your case, you have a lot going on. You have a lot of projects. You have a lot of things that are separated out. Like for example, we have Meet the Biz, and we have My Next Breath, and we have your personal website. I'll just use this. We have the Honey Bunny website. All 4 of them. Each of them, in my mind, each of them is a separate project, and they have a different flow and feel and fit. So the design of the Meet the Biz website isn't going to match the feel and design of the Honey Bunny website. And the reason for that is putting like all of the technical things aside, they have different feel, they have different flow. And I keep throwing these terms out, but if you like look at the Honey Bunny website, it more accurately represents both the movie, the short film as a whole, and the poster that you had created for it, as opposed to just putting that on another page on the Meet the Biz website.
Right.
Because they're not the same. If for example we said, okay, you have 4 projects going on, I'm going to make a 1 page, and each of your projects will have a single page on one website.
Okay.
The design flow would be too jarring, even if each page were different, because you're jumping back and forth from different projects that are supposed to be interconnected because they're all on one website. They're all under one umbrella, David Zimmerman Productions. But the feel would be too jarring of an experience. It would be too I keep saying the flow, and what I mean by that is the end user experience utilizing the website. So if you have like let's see, so yeah, like the My Next Breath website. The My Next Breath website, and I didn't design it, I'm only maintaining it, but I'm drawing it from experience. The My Next Breath website fits the feel of the movie that you are creating and the story that you're trying to tell. And your personal website is a reflection of what you represent and has all these links out to these other projects that you've done. But at the end of the day, if I just took the content from all four of these websites and just threw them on the Meet the Biz website and said, okay, yeah, we have a project and here's other projects. It doesn't make sense. And I'm trying my best to convey this in a designer fashion.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely could see it. I mean, if we have the David Zimmerman website or the davidszimmerman.com
Yeah.
website, which we do, and we have one page for each, it could get too schizophrenic. I mean, you
Yes.
have the links for the other ones, which are good. And then with the David Zimmerman, it could, the bio. And if I wanted to add another page to it for either photos or something about myself that is in connection or coaching or whatever, then that's something different. But it's nice to have those separated, like you said, the movie websites, the Meet the Biz website. So it really is, I feel, for me, it's the best thing to have.
Yeah. And it perfectly mimics real life. And the reason I say that is, again, if I'm building a website for someone and it's supposed to be your corner of the internet, what represents you, at the end of the day, when you're working on the Meet the Biz, when you're doing Meet the Biz, you're not also thinking about Honey Bunny. You're focusing on Meet the Biz, and that's the project that you're working on.
Right.
And sure, there could be some interconnectedness between them, but at the end of the day, it's separated out. So if we're creating a piece of the internet for every one of these projects, and each of these projects are separate in your life and how you work on them, why would we choose to amalgamate all of them together?
Right.
When life imitates art and art imitates life and all of that, the at the end of the day, like, sure, you could say, oh, like, you have 4 websites, that's so many websites, but you have 4 projects going on, that's so many projects. It's the same principle, essentially.
Yeah, and it all leads to the main hub, but it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah.
Now, let's say one of our students who loves acting at Performing Arts Studio West or Meet the Biz or anyone out in the YouTube land. Let's say they are actors and they're performers, but they also say, I'm interested in also becoming a web designer. What would you tell somebody?
So I would say the first thing to do is never get too technical. You have you will need, especially if like you're doing web development or you're not just doing designing, like if you're offering multiple things, you will need to get technical, obviously, because that deals with programming and what have you. But putting all of that aside for a moment, never get too technical, especially if you're doing web design, because at the end of the day, what you're flowing is your creativity. That's what you're working off of. For me personally, I literally, and the internet is wonderful for this. Actually, I think I checked a book out of the library first. I checked a book out of my elementary school library. It was the only book in the entire library on programming, and it was about web programming. And that's how I started. I started reading, I started researching, I started looking things up. But now, I mean, oh my gosh, you have so many resources at your disposal. There's YouTube, there's whole sites dedicated to teaching you for free how to program, how networking works, how the internet works. And just start learning. I would say start reading, start going ahead and experimenting. One of the first websites that I did was terrible, obviously, because it was my first website, but I just threw some code together, said hello world, and saw how I could have an image linked in from my hard drive display on a local machine. Yeah. And tried to figure out, okay, now that I have this, how would I get it on the internet? How does that work? And just research, mess around. The world, especially the internet, is your sandbox. It's you have the tools. You just need to know how to use them.
Yeah. Now let's say somebody says, well, why should I hire you? Why can't I just build my own?
Well, again, you can build your own. That's if you spend the time and you have enough of the knowledge to do it correctly, whereby not necessarily using a standard cookie cutter template like we talked about before, you can definitely do it on your own. But I would argue at the end of the day, I have over a decade's experience doing this, and I was hired by a company, by Petco, to go ahead and do stuff like this for them and do web architecture and all the nitty gritty technical stuff in between. So, I mean, you definitely can, but especially if you're trying to market yourself, unless you really have the time, which may be the case because we're all kind of stuck in quarantine right now. Now is a great time if you have the capacity to, while we're processing everything else going on in the world, to try and pick up a new hobby or something like that. I would definitely encourage you to do so. But if you don't have that time, or you don't necessarily want to try and get all that experience, I've been doing this for a decade.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, there are two other reasons. It's like, for example, that's why I have you as my web designer. Number one, I don't have the time.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. I have so much going on. I'm doing the Meet the Biz interviews. I'm someday gonna get my next breath film out there. The Honey Bunny has to go to film festivals. I'm teaching. I'm doing that. So I have so much going on that I would not be able to sleep, or probably either, if I had to also keep my websites up. So that's number one. And the second thing was, there goes my 56-year-old brain. It went, it's hiding. 20. Oh, there it is. A second pair of eyes, or a third pair of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
To have, you know, because if you're just, it's, you know, when you're being creative, when you're doing projects, it's always good to have people working together, because if you're just doing it yourself, you don't see everything, and it's that collaboration.
Yes. Yeah, I would. Yeah, definitely. Especially like I love working with other creatives when it comes to client sites, because they have that eye, and they know what most of the time they know what they're looking for, and they know, they're able to articulate how they want it, because they kind of they utilize that part of the brain more. Like at the end of the day, if I'm working on a site for someone and they tell me one thing and I give them exactly what they want, and they say, oh no, not that, something completely different. The language there is missing. The connection there is missing between creatives. But also, on top of everything, I'm going to take this back to, you have 4 websites. You can go ahead and let's say right now you threw stuff together, you had your own sites. Especially because like the Meet the Biz site especially has so much custom code going on in the background, and I have all this stuff that's built out specifically for how you utilize it and how Meet the Biz operates. It's not just, oh yeah, throw some videos on the website, got some photos, life's good, we're done. There's a lot of maintenance that goes into that. There's a lot of maintaining and updating software and taking care of servers. And sure, you could go ahead and pay a web host to take care of the servers for you. Most of the time, honestly, in my personal and professional opinion, a lot of those web hosts are doing the bare minimum, and they are not up to date on a lot of things. I'm not going to name names, but I just went live with another client website that's hosted on a pretty well-known like third-party hosting vendor. And I ran into problems because my development server is running the latest and updated versions of all these back-end frameworks and codecs and technical things that make the site work. Right. And then I put it on this HostGator, and all of those codecs hadn't been updated in 3 years. So I had to go back and be like, okay, I need to change how I'm coding some of this stuff, because it's not going to work on their site, because they say they've updated to the latest versions of everything on their documentation, and they haven't. Right. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely say at the end of the day, it depends on your use case. It depends on what you're trying to do. But unless you really have the time and resources to go ahead and do it right, it's better to go ahead and I'm a little bit biased for saying this, but I would say and you can attest this having done so, it's better to hire someone who knows what they're doing in the first place.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So what is your biggest, this is sort of like, I'm merging these two together. What is your biggest joy, or what turns you on the most?
So I will go ahead and say I miss the theater. I I made the decision to go back on the acting as I finished up my computer science degree, as I'm doing that, and also as I started taking on more and more client work, and also got hired by a company to go ahead and do a lot of web services and integrated software engineering for them. That's Petco. But I miss the theater. But at the end of the day, I would say my biggest joy in life, and I was just talking to my family about this last night over Shabbat dinner. My biggest joy in life is working on the web. And the reason I say this isn't because like, oh, I run my own business, I want people to hire me, whatever. No, the reason I say this is right now, the work that I do for Petco deals a lot with web infrastructure and web engineering.
Yeah.
Kind of getting servers to talk to each other and all this technical mumbo jumbo. I find myself doing that for fun. I go ahead and it'll be 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, because I work all the time. And
do you ever sleep?
Yeah, I've been trying to get better at that. And I tell myself, I'm just gonna spend 30 minutes. I'm just gonna read a book or watch a YouTube video, just decompress, let my mind spin down for once. And before I know it, I've spent an hour designing an entire network server infrastructure for web hosting. Why? I don't know, because I like doing that. That's honestly working with computers, understanding how they work, getting them to do things that maybe you've never had them do before, maybe nobody has ever had them do before. That is just so cool to me.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Just learn, and the breadth of knowledge and capacity that we have for technology and the internet especially is just so, to me, it like we're in the middle of such a huge technological boom, and even at that, I still think to myself, man, there's so much untapped potential in the internet still, in technology and everything that we do.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I would say bridging the connect that brings me joy. I would say the biggest joy is bridging that connection between the technical and the human. And I think that speaks well both for having done acting and doing websites, but also with my degrees. I'm a computer science major, minoring in philosophy. And to some, oh, that sounds great because that works well because AI. No, I'm not interested in AI. I don't care about AI. I'm interested in the impact that technology has on us as humans, and how that shapes our lives, and how the internet has shaped our lives, especially coming from a generation where I grew up with the internet.
Yeah.
And bringing those two things together for me is what really stands out. Not only understanding how it works and operates, but molding it, forming it, having it do what we want with it, with this tool that we've created that is now ever so expansive and ever present. And at the end of the day, I think that is what brings me the most joy.